Hey everybody, welcome back to the Turnout. I am your host Aloy. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, all that great stuff. Now, normally, I actually get a chance to watch the episode and then I record all of my thoughts and then I, edit it and put clips and music and all the craziness. That is not happening this week. It has been kind of a crazy week for me. So I did just watch the episode last night, so I was a day behind, and I want to talk about it. We have so much to talk about. So first off, hats off to you, writers. Seriously, you guys knocked it out of the park in this episode. There were so many things that were done right in this episode of Charmed that it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to know that they are capable of like this level of great writing and attention to detail and all of these really great things. Hello to both Christian and Lillian who are here. I notice there's a few others. Feel free to say hi in the chat, and I will, if you guys have any questions or whatever, feel free to type it in as I'm going. Or if you have points about the show or whatever you want to bring up while I'm talking about it, I'm going to kind of recap the show and give my thoughts kind of in a blow for blow kind of situation. Otherwise, if there are any other questions for me or anything like that, then I will hit those at the end. If there are any other questions, and there might not be, we might answer everything during the course. But this episode is called "Someone is Going to Die." So whenever I hear something like this, I immediately get my hopes up that the show is going to have, the courage to take out a main character. And I say courage because it means a lot to kill a character in a TV show. If anybody here has watched Game of Thrones, you know how mad some people were when Ned Stark died at the end of the first season. And yes, I am spoiling it for anybody who is watching this. Is your fault if you don't know that Ned Stark dies at the end of the first season. The show is already off the air for about 2 years, a year, maybe and a half or whatever. And it had already gone on for about 7 or 8 years before that. So if you don't know, that's your fault, is all I'm going to say. I'm always hoping that it was going to be one of those. And I see Christian says, I was thinking one of the sisters was going to die. That was definitely a possibility because they had said that if the sisterhood was ever in trouble, then that could lead to one of them dying, because one of the charmed ones always dies in like the long history of the Book of Shadows. We learned that a few episodes ago. So that was definitely an option. But I'm always reminded of the episode of Buffy, and then we'll get into the actual review here in a sec. But I'm always reminded of the episode of Buffy where Angel ended up killing Ginny. Now, a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that they killed Ginny." But for me, I remember the commercials and the hype around this episode, and it said like, on this week's episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, someone is going to die. I may be not in those exact words. Hello, Jackson McNuggets. Fun name. But basically, they were saying, and the commercial showed like Buffy, Willow, Xander, Giles, Oz, and it was like it showed everybody but Ginny in the commercial. And I was like, wait a minute, are you telling me that one of the people you just showed me, those are the people who might die? Oh my gosh, I have to watch this episode. Somebody's gonna die. And then it was Ginny who died. And again, that sucked too, but it was not to the level that was hyped for me to get super excited about someone dying on this episode. So that's just my personal opinion. So I'm always going into shows hoping that they're willing to take that extra step and do something huge. But yeah, let's talk about this though. So the episode starts off with Maggie touching pieces of the pod that Harry was kept in, again, episodes ago. It seems very random that this was the thing that she was doing in this particular moment. If they had pieces of this, if they had pieces of that pod, she should have gotten some sort of images from it already. Like I would have thought that they would have already been like, "You got any premonitions? No? Okay, cool. Let's move forward." Like that was again, like in terms of the show time, it was weeks ago, like weeks, possibly months that they've just been holding on to this pod. So, I mean, I guess that's fine. It was just kind of a weird way for them to get the I liked it. It was just an odd setup is all I'm saying. There was nothing that led us to that. Like in the last episode, they didn't say like, "Oh my god, well, this thing happened, so I don't know, maybe we pull out the pieces of the pod again." And then it'd be like, "Cool, so we know in the next episode they're going to be checking the pod." But they didn't do that. It was just like, bam, pod. Anyway, so she sees a vision and she sees a vault door opening, someone cutting their hand, Harry running through the woods, Jordan hearing a scream over his shoulder, also in the woods, Macy looking like she has all white eyes, blood dropping onto a stone, which honestly didn't look like a stone when I was watching it originally. It looked like almost like a window of like a submarine window. It was going by really fast. So that was my first initial thought. I was like, submarine window? That's weird. Is somebody going to die inside of a submarine? Anyway, so, but it ended up being a stone. So blood dropping on a stone, an explosion in the sanctuary, sending the charmed ones flying backwards, Swan crying, Macy scared, Mel looking down, Maggie bleeding out of her nose, and then like a crazy like green and blue, really cool looking eye. To be quite honest, like we know, and throughout the episode we find out what all of these end up connecting to. But she gets out of the vision and she's like, somebody is gonna die. And it's just like, okay, all right, I see it, I get it, this is good. And it's like, so if we're going through again, it's almost like that commercial that I saw before. If we see her vision, then we see Harry, Jordan, Macy, Swan, Mel, and Maggie, and I think that's all that we see in the vision, right? So my thought would be if you see all of these things in the vision and then you get an idea that somebody's going to die, then it would be somebody in the vision. Now, later we find out that that crazy eye at the end is Julian's eye. So he was in the vision. But again, it's just interesting editing to trick us as the viewer. So, I was like, oh, crap, it's on. Let's do this. Somebody's going to die. Somebody's really going to die. Are you sure? Are you for real? Somebody's going to die. All right, let's watch this. So they visit the guardian who's guarding the tree, which again, kind of random. They're like, okay, cool. Well, hey, guardian, they have magic. And the guardian's like, well, then, you have to seal this up. And but if you seal this up, then you're not going to have access to Black Amber anymore, and you're not going to be able to portal anymore. And it was so funny because then Maggie's just like, but then we won't be able to save witches anymore. And I'm like, girl, when was the last time you saved a witch? You guys just want to be able to orb. That's what you guys want. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but Macy was just using it so she could go to, she could go to Julian's private island for a booty call. She was like, I'll just orb there. I don't need to buy a ticket. So so I'm like, but when was the last witch you guys saved using that? I'm like, nah. And Christian just said, and you have Harry. Exactly. You don't even need to orb. And actually, there's a scene near the end, and I'll talk about it in a second, but there's a scene near the end where Harry waits for them to orb. And I'm like, why didn't you just teleport? Like, it's weird. It's just weird. They're acting as if that they need the orbing. They don't necessarily need it. Although it is awesome to have, like if Harry isn't there, like if during the whole second season, Harry is off doing his own, storyline and stuff, having your own way to teleport around is a good thing, but don't try and pretend like you're doing it so I can save witches, because you guys barely saved any witches. I think in the second season, I think you guys saved a handful, maybe 4 or 5 witches that were not also your sisters. So it's a weird thing. I dug it though. And the Guardian says that the new Conqueror is coming. And honestly, I had forgotten about that thread. Somebody in my comments had mentioned the Conqueror in my comments in the last video, and they were like, "Oh, the Conqueror is probably coming back," and I'm like, Oh yeah, they mentioned the Conqueror once before, didn't they? There- it's if it's just not consistent in terms of when they're referring to things. So the Conqueror wasn't brought up until much later on in the season, and then it's supposed to be this big, interesting, important thing. But it's like I thought maybe it was just like a theory they had, but I didn't even know if it was really going to go anywhere. But hey, it's the Conqueror. So if a human touches Black Amber, it's going to destroy all magic. Last time that happened, it brought the Dark Ages. And I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. Hello to Jada, who just joined us and said hi in the chat. So we cut away to Aunt Viv, and again, I hate calling her Aunt Viv. It ruins Fresh Prince for me. But Aunt Viv is having a business meeting, and the guy's like, "Well, you guys need more money," and she's just like, "For more research. It's not ready yet." And he's like, "Well, I'm not gonna do it." So she takes out this thing called the prism. It's a glove. I know I'm very cavalier about their voices. If I tried to pretend to do their voices, they would sound even worse than me not trying. So so she has the prism, is what they call it. It's a glove that can absorb energy, magic energy, and then they can use it and they can access any number of powers that they've absorbed into it. And I was like, okay, it's pretty cool. I mean, honestly, it's a bad guy, but also, I mean, it's pretty cool. So she starts turning him to stone, obviously using powers of a Gorgon, which is the type of creature that Medusa was. So if you're using the powers of a Gorgon, I'm like, well, that's already pretty awesome. So, and hello, Mr. Houdadine, by the way. Yeah, so that's what happens. So she turns him half to stone, and I really, really loved the line there that she starts turning him to stone, and the business guy was just like, what are you doing? And she's like, you only need one hand to write a check. And I was just like, ooh, that's a great line. Whoever in the writer's room wrote that line, give that person a raise. That's all I have to say. Cause that line right there, that showed everything we needed to know about Aunt Viv. Amazing line. You only need one hand to write a check. Ooh, 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 it just sends chills down my back every time I hear it. But she also mentions that Julian is missing, and I'm like, ooh, okay. So, because I was expecting Julian to go back immediately and start helping out and be an undercover agent and all that stuff. Um, and then obviously we find out that that is the case, and that he is there as Nadia. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then they explain everything. I'm going to get into that in just a second. But we cut to Jordan, who is in the woods, and I'm like, oh, you better not kill Jordan. I was just like, I swear to God, anybody who watches my reviews knows I love me some Jordan. If you kill Jordan, if Jordan dies in this episode, we's gonna have some words, is all I have to say about that. So he apparently is going to a house. I was thinking that he was going to this weird, creepy house in the middle of the woods to save another witch, but it turns out that he was going there for Abigail and ended up getting some sort of bag for her. The, they did not spend a lot of time on Jordan. There was that one scene, the ending scene where he revealed to Maggie about the bag and Abigail, and she's just like, "You don't want to mess around with Abigail," and he's like, "Look, I got me. You worry about you." And in the middle part where she calls him and says, like, "I'm so worried. You were in Afghanistan," and it's just like, hell right, damn right he was. Jordan can do anything. So he was like, so she was like, "You were in Afghanistan. How do you stay calm and stuff?" And he says like, I mean, you don't look to the future, you just stay calm and in the moment. And it's one of those weird things. It's like when something is obvious and you might even know the answer, sometimes it just helps for someone else to say it to you. And then it makes more sense because you're like, because when you're in the middle of like, you have a million thoughts going through your head and you're like, I should calm down. But then you're like, but if I calm down, then this could happen and then that could happen. But if I don't calm down, and if I do calm down, blah, blah, blah. But you need somebody else to come in and be like, dude, calm down. And you'll be like, you're right. Actually, I should. So you do sometimes need that outward, influence. And I actually liked that scene with the phone call. But it also seemed it also seems like Jordan is just seriously making time for somebody who is pushing him away for good reason, but he literally needs to like, look, you're in the woods and you might be the one that dies this episode, so please don't stop to answer her phone call and make her feel better when you are at danger. Because I knew Maggie wasn't gonna die. So we all know Maggie's not gonna die. So Maggie, just ignore her. If somebody else called you, answer that phone call. I don't know. That's a whole thing. So anyway, so they find out. So we find out that that Aunt Viv is going to make the move tonight. Okay. And so they're like, okay, well, how do we do this, and how are we going to make this work? And Julian says he doesn't need our help, but we should really go help him. And they're like, Macy's like, well, why don't we trust him? And they're like, no, we don't trust this guy. What the hell? Are you crazy? And honestly, I would trust him because I understand him. I understand him as a character. He was doing something because he believed it would have a good result, and then it ended up not. You revealed it to him that it was not going to have a good result, so he's not going to continue doing that. He's not going to continue being the bad guy if you've shown him that his actions are not going to lead to the thing that he was looking for. So I was down to just trust him, but not everybody was. Only Macy was. So whatever. Uh, and I think that that's good. I think that at least one of them needed to not trust him, because if everybody just trusted him implicitly from that moment, it would have seemed hokey. But for everyone to not trust him except for Macy, that also seemed hokey. I think there needed to be a better balance. Like, even if it was like Macy and one of the sisters both trusted him, and then it didn't even matter which one, Mel or Maggie. It could have been either one, but one of them also needed to be on Macy's side for it to feel a little bit more balanced. That's just my opinion. Who cares though? Who cares? Who cares? That's so uninteresting of a topic, but like I could harp on that for like ever. So then we do find out that Julian is the bodyguard, and he calls them up, and then he says that there's like a magical force field around. But there's a weird thing with like the naming, like the words that they're saying, because it's like they have magical sensors, and I'm like, do you mean magic sensors? Like, it was just a weird it was just a weird thing. It was just a weird thing for me, in terms of all of that, because I was like, magical is an adjective, but so is magic, like a magic show. You don't call it a magical show. It's a magic show. Writing is hard is all I'll say. But anyway, that's beside the point. It did kind of mess with me a little bit though when they kept saying magical sensors and they have magical guards. But they did have a force field that needs to be brought down if Harry, who was not in the woods, who was instead at the fortress, the place where the bad guys and stuff are. So here we are. So I did dig the way that they turned Julia into Nadia, but then they immediately kind of backtracked on it and made it kind of odd, because I was like, oh cool, so they had to put her hand on a page, and then they put his hand on a page, and it transferred the thing. And then on the phone, he goes, so how long does this potion last? And I'm like, but it wasn't a potion. It was the hand thing that you did. It was the spell. It wasn't the potion. What's going on here? Am I taking crazy pills or something? Like, what potion did you take? I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, so there was a sweet little moment where Macy made these like weird magic and that's the thing, like she calls them magical headphones, and I'm like, you just call them magic headphones. Like, making it magical is so weird, to instead of just magic. All right, I really will stop this time. But then it made it so that they could communicate, and that was like an interesting thing, because then later on she handed it off to Maggie when she went to go help Harry in person, and she couldn't have it on her because it caused feedback. And I'm hoping that ends up creating, like, there's something that has something to do with these later on, and that feedback is an important point. Otherwise, because it seems like it's an extraneous line unless it leads to something. So I'm hoping it does because I liked the idea of two people being able to communicate over long distances, but something forcing them together, and then they have to deal with the feedback. Like that could actually come in handy as a storytelling mechanism later on. But anyway, so as Nadia, Julian tries to get the prism so he can destroy it, but Aunt Viv still has it because she ain't giving it up. Why would she? And then it cuts away, and I'm like, oh, so Julian's the one that died. And I'm like, does that count? Wait, is he gonna die? Let's see. Maybe they save him. We'll see. So they find out that obviously Harry can't orb into the base because of the force field. So the sisters do the whole spell, so that they can make it so that well, no, they have to get the components for it. So Mel goes to Ruby for the stone, which is a spell component, and so that she could see her, and it was nice because I know that when I had my conversation with Maria over on Approach the Nerd, we were like, where's Ruby? Like, and good, we know where Ruby is now. They kind of were just like taking a break because she's way into magic and Ruby is very much not. So I think that's a good reason, honestly. And again, I feel like it was implied, but it was good that they said something, and that's the storytelling, that's the screenwriting. If it's not on the screen, then the viewer is just left to just imagine what happened. So the fact that they addressed it, good. That's good. See, I know I harp a lot on the Charmed writers here, but it's honestly just because they're already really good, and it's really just about like hitting these little nitpicky things. I'm never mad about like main things. I think they do a really good job with the main story. Otherwise, why would I watch the show? But I'm a nitpicker. It's what I do. So they go and they get that, and then they try to do the actual spell, and that's so that Harry can get in. Let me see. Is there anything else here? Hold on. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, yeah. All right. So yeah, so that's it. So they do the spell and it drops the shield. Harry gets in. Harry checks the computer and it says that all of the creatures that they had been housing are terminated. They've all been drained of their powers and they've been terminated. And I looked at the list and I'm like, there was a Chiron, a Basilisk, and Basilisk might be actually what Aunt Viv was using to turn the dude to stone, because basilisks can also do that. But there was a drake, and I mean, they were just like, it was a long list, and I'm sure that was only part of the list, but they were all terminated. So that prism had all of the collective information and energy all in that thing that Aunt Viv had. So I was like, okay, cool. So basically, if they can get their hands on that, then it's over. We're done. Like, it's if they can destroy that thing, then it's fine. And then let's see. Oh God, I lost my place in my notes. See, this is what happens when you go live instead of recording. So yeah, so then when so he finds out that all of the creatures are in the prism, and Harry says, well, then I'm going to go after it and try and get it. And they're like, don't do it. And he's like, no, I mean, I have to do it. And like, honestly, yes, he has to do it because yeah, he has to. He's Harry. He has to do it. So, but Macy's like, well, then I'm going to go back him up. So they do the spell again. And they had already shown that the first time they did it, it was very draining on them and it left them exhausted. So doing it again, I was like, oh, well, maybe this is where somebody dies. Doing this spell that is incredibly draining on their magical energy and stuff. And I'm like, okay. I mean, it's just asking for trouble, though, because then Macy says, well, what we'll do is we'll start the spell. But then you guys just hold it and I'll go. So essentially giving the power, what's necessary to have the power of 3, but giving it to 2 of them. We'll see. I was like, that's just asking for trouble. And then when they're doing the spell, then Mel like falls over and acts as if she's dead. And I was like, oh crap, is Mel the one who died? I didn't hear that she was leaving the show, but is she leaving the show? But then Maggie is then left holding the spell. And I'm like, okay, so I mean, there's stakes, right? There's drama, there's tension, and they were doing an amazing job building it all up to here. Then Macy and Harry, they find Julian, who is half turned to stone. The alarm goes off. Harry tries to heal him, but then Julian dies. Excuse me. So with that, I was like, so it's not Mel, it's going to be Julian. So is that it? I was like, is that it? Like, is it Julian? I was sitting there literally. I was like, I hope it's not Julian. I don't think that we were meant to care about Julian. I don't think anybody cared about Julian, and even the sisters didn't care about Julian. Harry didn't care about Julian. The only one who cared about Julian was Macy, and that even seems like that's a 180 because in the episode right before, they were like mean dogging and like browbeating each other when they were like, like, was it any of it real? Of course it was real. How dare you even ask that? It was just like no one cared about Julian. So having an episode called Someone is Going to Die and it be one of the people who was the bad guy for part of the season, who cares? Like like there's no, for me there's no like conclusion to the someone's gonna die storyline. I mean, because that could have been like, oh, she turned that guy, the business guy at the beginning, she did end up turning him entirely to stone, and that's the guy who died. I would have cared just as much about that. Although I did like Julian as a character, they did not do a good job making me care about Julian dying because I was like, okay, cool. I mean, it's definitely going to be at the end. Like again, these are the last few episodes that were going to be the last season, and Julian, I was like, yeah, so Julian's probably going to die. I mean, because he is the bad guy who has now turned good and is trying to go in undercover. I'm like, no, that dude's dead. So I don't know. That's just me. Uh, so while they're trying to go after Aunt Viv steals all of Macy's memories and then like blinks away. So that's actually pretty cool. So then they're like, oh, well, where does she go? Well, she's probably coming here because she has all my memories. So we need to seal away the portal to the to the tree and the Guardian. And I'm just like, well, the Guardian said to do that earlier. Why'd you guys not do that? Like, that would have been my first. They were like, no, but we need orbs to save witches. For real, though. Anyway, so they didn't get the prism. They go back and they're like, we need to seal it away. So they start sealing it away, start shutting the door, as Christian has said a few times. And Viv shows up and blows them all backwards. So that happened also in the visiony thing. She turns and she goes in, touches the black amber, and she starts turning into this like giant fire demony thing that is obviously in the thumbnail for this video. And they start pointing their magic at her, and the prism is just like sucking up the magic, and she's like, ha 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 ha, you can't defeat me. And they're just like, what if we used more magic? And it's almost like Captain Marvel in a way. If you watch Captain Marvel, that movie, it's like she's shooting a beam at the bad guy and she's not doing anything to him, so she decides to shoot a better beam. And it's like and like that's cool, but like why not just shoot the better beam in the first place if you're also up against this, you're up against this person who is going to destroy all of magic as we know it? Why would you skimp on the first beam? Just do it the right way the first time. So anyway, I would have liked it if there was maybe some sort of outward component that maybe they were like, our magic isn't working, but if we recite this new spell, or if we, let me see, if they try to interface with the witch computer, or if Harry comes over and they drain some of his life energy and that works, or something, not just, hey, the amount that we're doing isn't working, let's do more. that's not great. I didn't like that part. I didn't like that part that much. But you know what? But they basically overload the prism, and she explodes, and that is how you defeat a bad guy at the end of a season. So I know that a lot of people were saying that like there's 3 episodes of the last season left. So like at the end of this one, I'm like, but that's the end. Like, unless they're gonna spend an entire episode possibly like transitioning to the new season, which I would prefer. I would prefer it to not just be, again, I think I said this before, but I don't want it to be these 3 episodes are the last season and then we're starting brand new on episode 4 with that. I would love it if it more kind of flowed into it and wasn't just like such a clear delineation between them. But then we find, so Mel goes to see Ruby and it's like, oh, and then Macy, of course, is with Harry and they're just like, we're going to start our love and it's going to be great. And Maggie and Jordan are like, what's up? That's pretty much it, because I think they're still not convinced that they are going to be together. But also Jordan's like, look, I got a curse, I got it, I'm working on it, and Abby's actually helping me and it's wonderful. And she's like, oh, maybe you shouldn't. She's like, look, I got this, you got a lot of stuff on your plate, I'm Jordan, I can do anything. So you are Maggie, and probably, you know, you don't do you don't do as much as I do, so I'm gonna handle me. So that's how I feel about it, at least. But when Mel went to go see Ruby, she started coughing up smoke, and then they found out that they accessed the computer and found out that all of the witches in the world are having the same issue, and all of the demons. And so now, and they went to see the tree, and the tree is turning to ash, and they're like, oh man, this isn't over. So I'm like, okay, cool. So that's what the last episode of the last season. So episode 3 is going to deal with them trying to save magic itself now. So there is no big bad to fight anymore. It's now just about trying to clean up the mess that Aunt Viv getting into the sanctuary in the first place caused. The issue that they could have solved from the beginning of the episode if they had just sealed it away in the first place. But you know what? They need orbs in order to save witches. So now they definitely need them because all the witches are in danger. So that's a whole other thing. But anyway, so overall, really enjoyed the episode. And again, any of my critiques are all nitpicky, right? But I really, really enjoyed this episode. It was epic in all of the right ways. There was tension, there was danger, there was death, there was just so much. There was mystery, and I think that it was a really good tying up of a lot of the storylines that we got in the second season. And hopefully the third episode again isn't just going to be just a final episode and then episode 4 is going to be the start of the new season. I'm really hoping that they deal with all of this stuff and we transition into the new season so that episode 4 is literally just a continuation of the story and not like a brand new story. I don't know how it can be done. It kind of will be difficult again with just how massive this story is that's carried over now from the second season. But they can do it. I believe in you, Charmed writers. You guys are good. Again, I wouldn't watch the show if the show sucked. I wouldn't watch it. I can sit here and nitpick anything, but I only nitpick the things that I like. If I didn't like it, I would just be like, "Oh, that's trash," and I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't even talk about things I don't like to tell you not to watch it. I would just not talk about it. I've had people request that I do like reviews of stuff that I hate, and I'm like, I don't want to review stuff that I hate. I want to tell you about all the stuff I love. And yeah, I might pick it apart and make fun of it, but I'm allowed to do that because I love it. So, people come on here all the time and they're just like, how dare you make fun of Charmed? And I'm just like, I'm not making fun of it from an outsider perspective. I'm making fun of it and nitpicking and doing all these things so that hopefully somebody will see it. And hopefully this critique that I'm giving will make it better because I love it, but I want to love it more. So let's look at so I'm done. That's my review. I loved it. If you guys haven't seen it, you guys need to see it, obviously. So I'm gonna hit some of the questions. So if you guys have questions or anything that you want to talk about, any extra points that you want to bring up about the episode, put those in the chat and we'll go through them. But Christian says, I agree. They did knock it out of the park this episode, and I completely agree. Uh, yes, most definitely. Christian also said, I was expecting one of the sisters to die, and no, I wasn't expecting that at all. I was hoping because that would be interesting. But again, I didn't hear that any of the sisters were leaving the show, and that's not the kind of excuse me, and that's not the kind of thing that would that we wouldn't have heard through the news, I think, beforehand, or any of like the fan channels and stuff like that. Let's see. Oh, that was the thing too. Like Harry seems so not willing to heal people anymore. They've already taken that green stuff out of him that stopped him from being able to heal. I mean, he was trying to heal people. Like he tried to heal Julian, but he was too far gone. And he, was healing Ruby at the end. But like, how come in the last episode when you're at Rosemary's bed and she's in the hospital, she's in a coma, can't you heal that, Harry? Like, isn't that a thing you can do? Can't you just go, you're not in a coma anymore? Like being friends with Harry is like the ability to heal. It's crazy. Like there are a few different powers in like superheroes or whatever kind of contexts that are just way OP. One is healing because you can just, it doesn't matter how much damage people take, just, it's gone the next episode because I can heal. The other one's teleportation, which is interesting because they have both of these. White lighters have both of them, which honestly makes white lighters very OP, which I like the fact that they make them like not part of the fight for that reason, because they can just teleport all around, beat the person up, and if they did get hit, just heal it, and it's great. Mr. Hootie Dean says, the problem is the names are so generic you forget what the threat is supposed to be, and I agree. What I'm really hoping though is that they bring my boy the lieutenant back, who's now the demon overlord. I need him to come back because he's awesome. Anyway, it's supposed to be the generic The Guardian, said the name. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like The Guardian, The Conqueror. Like honestly, I think all of these things they need a modifier. They need an adjective. So if it was like the Dark Guardian or like, like something like that would make it a little bit more interesting, even though Dark Guardian is very cliche anyway. Adding the word dark to anything is like, ugh, don't do that. But anyway, I can't believe that they dropped Julian's sister's subplot. I don't think that they dropped it. I think that there wasn't much else to do with it. Like, so Rosemary, Julian's sister, was specifically Julian's motivation. So as soon as they were like, well, then that's not what you're doing right now isn't going to help Rosemary. He said, oh, well, I'm going to help you like stop the thing that I started. And that's great too, because she's still kind of serving as motivation there now. But then as soon as he's dead and, the aunt is dead, what other storyline is there for her besides Harry going and using his healing to wake her up? Which again, I don't know why he didn't do that already. Do you think we will see Nadia and Jimmy again? I don't think that we will see Nadia again, unless, you know what I just thought, because Nadia and Jimmy were in a relationship earlier. So it could be that instead of coming home, Nadia finds Jimmy in the UK, because he's a good man now. And she now would be part of that whole mind virus thing. That could be cool to see her because she was pretty badass. So it would be nice to actually see her in that now. So yeah, that's my answer to that one. I think we will see them again. Whenever we see Jimmy again, I think we will see Nadia again because it just makes sense. Just makes sense. Unless that actress like isn't available or something, like then we won't. So let's see. Gosh. What was Viv's motivation? Was it also her niece? Yes, but she wasn't necessarily motivated by that. She was motivated by the most cliched thing an enemy and a villain can be motivated by, and that's just like power. Her motivation specifically didn't seem that clear. It was mostly just that there's all this magic and she wanted it. And I mean, honestly, that was kind of the short and long of it. Like Julian had at least a deep motivation, his love for his sister and the fact that he saw magic work and then he wanted to make it work for him and all that stuff. Like so much of his backstory made sense. That's why I knew that he wasn't going to be the big bad and that he was being manipulated, because there was just too much good. There was too much good in him, in his intentions. And the problem is that the way that the good and evil work on this show is that they could not have the big bad be in a gray area. The big bad on a show like Charmed needs to be black and white. The charmed ones are good, they're evil. So Viv was evil. Julian was in a gray area because he was willing to do really bad things, but for a good reason. And, as far as he thought, the idea is that every villain is the hero of their own story, except for Aunt Viv. She's just a villain. So that's my thought on her, at least. All right, so let me see. She wanted to be the apex predator. In her mind, humanity needs to be the alpha. I mean, that's true, but then why didn't she turn into a cheetah? Sorry, that was a Wonder Woman rip. Anyway. Let's see. Hold the door, Hodor. Shut the door, show door. Yeah, what's up with shut the door? You've been typing that a lot. Yes, that fight was fast. I think it needed to be. I think they're really trying to tie all this up so they can move on, and I'm happy with that. What happens to Julian's sister, and who will inherit the money and the company? Here's the thing: is I'm pretty sure that I'm sure that Julian had a will. I would hope that he had a will. It probably would still go to the sister, because she is still alive and she would be the living kin. Now, if she continues to be in a coma, though, then the estate would end up going into what's called probate. I am not a lawyer, but I know a lot about this particular thing. So the estate would go into what's called probate, and it would be managed by an estate manager who would act in the estate's best interest until either she woke up and took control or she died, and then basically they use the estate to pay off bills, and mostly I think the money would end up just going to like taxes and and stuff like that. So it's an interesting question. I don't think that we're supposed to think that deep into it, but because Rosemary she wasn't an actual character, she was really just there to be motivation. So there you go. And I doubt that Julian changed his will at the last minute to include the sisters, so they are not going to get that money, sadly. Although they could do another mind virus that says that just says Macy was related to Julian, and then she would just get that money. So there you go. And then everybody would believe that she was related to him. All right, so let's see. Madness Arcade. I thought that it was a cathartic. It felt like classic Vanquish. I guess it did feel like a classic Vanquish. But you guys know what I feel about Vanquishing. Let's see. It's like season 1. Thank you again, Jackson McNuggets. I still love that name. It's like season 1 was about the source demons and witches fighting for its power, and they got rid of Alistair and Fiona before the last episode, and the finale was an amazing dimension travel episode. Yeah, and that's probably what's going to happen, is that the final episode is going to be them figuring out how to clean up the mess that they had, just like in the first season. Actually, you're right. I didn't even connect that. You're completely correct. That, yeah, it's very much like that. So let's see. Parker gave up his powers and has moved on. Well, yeah. Oh, because that was the question. Where's Parker? Yeah, he gave up his powers. He moved on. That's literally the answer. I wish there was more, but that's literally the answer. He was like, "All right, peace out. See you later." Amber 2 was season 2 was about Amber and green goo and humans wanting power over it. I can't argue with that description. So see, if they sealed it up fast, then there wouldn't have been much of a climax and would have made the rest of the episode been boring. Oh yes. No. Okay. So yes, I understand their decision from a storytelling aspect, Madness Arcade, because if they had sealed it, then there wouldn't have been a story. Just like, the same reason why you have characters that do nonsensical things, because if they do the logical thing, then there would be no movie or TV show in the first place. So yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm just saying, like, but just like if I was in their shoes, I'd be like, well, let's seal it up then. The Guardian says that if she gets in here and she's powerful enough to get in here, so let's just make it a non-factor. Because if you just seal it up, then we can try and fight her afterwards. We still have Harry. Harry can still teleport us around. And if we really need to, we can get Abigail to come in and help. She can teleport. She can't teleport other people. She can teleport herself, but that's something, So they have other tools at their disposal besides the Guardian and the tree and the Black Amber and the orbing and blah blah blah. So, who's my favorite character? I think I've answered that already. Jordan. And Jordan's probably not going to be around for too much longer, so that answer will probably change back to Macy because I really like Macy. I really like Harry as well. But I think my favorite's probably Macy, but that's only if Jordan is no longer in the show. Otherwise, I like Jordan. Let's see. Is Abigail's sister the new family member this season? If she is, then that would mean that Abigail is related to the Charm ones, so I would say probably not. Let's see. I would love to see Macy and Mel use their powers this episode. We need more casual power use so it feels more natural to them, an extension of themselves. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually a thing that we've been talking about a lot, me and Maria, at least, from the Approach to the Nerd. We've been talking about that a lot. It's just like they have these powers and they don't use them. Like, I would be using them all the time if I had those powers. We did have premonition use in this episode, so that was something. And there was a lot of spell casting, but you're right, there wasn't any telekinesis, there wasn't any matter mastery, even though I hate that name, but that's what they call it. So so let's see. What do you think Abby wants to tell her sister? I don't know. I honestly have zero clue. Why would she want her sister? Unless now that she tried to infiltrate the demon world and was unsuccessful, now she's going to have someone else maybe help her this time. That could be it. I don't know. That's a really hard question to answer. They could bring back Julian, Galvin, and others, turn them into white lighters or something like white lighter guardians for witches. They could. What would be interesting is if they. Well, I mean, no. I guess something like white lighters would be okay, because I think we've learned already that the creation of white lighters is torturous and a terrible thing. So definitely not exactly white lighters. If they could come up with something, I guess that's fine. That's a difficult one. I don't even know if I would want that. Let's see. I thought Rosemary was going to turn out to be a patent witch, a latent witch. Okay, you did switch. You changed it. A latent witch. Could be. Could be. I mean, but that no, probably not. Probably not. I think probably they would have like sensed it or something. Something to that effect. Hello, Erica Booker. Looks like you have a bunch of questions. Let's hit a couple of those. Do you think Harry hesitated when trying to save Julian? Yes, I think that's what we were supposed to think as well. I feel like he saw Julian in the throes of death and he might have been able to save him, but in the end chose not to. And it could be because of his jealousy towards his relationship with Macy. That could be the case. There was nothing, I would say, that was concrete evidence to that, but I would say that the writing and the editing of it definitely was supposed to give us the impression that he hesitated that he hesitated. I'm gonna say I think that's what I'll say. I don't think that, and I think that's what you said too. You said hesitated. I don't think that he purposely was like, like, yes, Julian, die. You are my competition. But I really do think that it was like, wait, should I save him? And then the moment he realized, yes, I definitely should, that's when he died. So I think that may end up haunting Harry going forward. Uh, and I was kind of hoping that we would see a ramification of that, but like when he like saw Macy and he was just like, "So I know that Julian just died." And she's like, you know, "F that noise, let's go do it." And he's like, "Yes, let's do it." And it's just like, and then I guess he kind of felt justified in his choice then at that point. Ah, anyway, I know this is a big stretch, but do you think since Jimmy is a good man, now it is affecting Harry? So it would be interesting if possibly the roles were being reversed. So if Jimmy is a good man, but he's the dark lighter, it could be possible, and this is like you said, it's a big stretch. This is a complete shot in the dark. But what if the being a good man is pushing some of the darkness out of Jimmy into Harry? And that might be why then Harry hesitated, because really, if you think about it, Harry shouldn't hesitate to heal somebody, but in this case, he did. Are we going to be able to come around and blame this on Jimmy? I wonder. So let's see. Blah, 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 blah. So let's see. Writers answered one of my many questions on the Twitter about Jordan and asked, "Will Jordan be staying around for a while?" And they said, "As he lives and breathes." Yes. Okay. Good then. So then, going back to my other answer, Jordan is my favorite. He better stay around. I was about to be mad about something. I wonder if they'll go back to Hilltown now because they have no reason to be in witchness protection, and they can probably find a way to be like they never died. So I don't know. I mean, honestly, at this point, the world's their oyster, and they can even orb, so they can go anywhere and live anywhere at this point. So uh, there's no reason for them to go back to Hilltown. There's no reason really for them to go back to Hilltown. They even the first season, they never necessarily established anything that was like holding them in that town except for their family house. And their family house is invisible and can teleport anywhere with them. So they can go live anywhere. And literally the writers of the show can just say they're somewhere and like we just have to believe it. So what if Swan is a white lighter as an homage to the original when Leo tried to pass himself off as an average Joe? I'd be down with that. I think Swan needs to be something. She needs to be something, and I'm excited to see what she is. Is Safe Space finally over and done? Well, the Sanctuary is still in Safe Space, so we still do have one more episode to conclude everything, and I guess we'll see where it goes and like if they have to sacrifice the Sanctuary and finally seal up the thing and all that. I mean, they kind of already missed the boat on sealing it up before the bad thing happened. So now they have to figure out what they can do now that the bad thing is happening. So I think it'll be interesting just to see where it goes from there. I'm excited to see it because I really, really did enjoy this episode. Obviously, thank you to all the people who have shown up. I think this is probably my most populated live stream. So thank you. If you guys like this sort of thing, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. And on the bell, don't forget to hit all notifications instead of just some notifications, because there's a lot of people who are subbed, but they're not actually getting alerted to the videos. Go fig. YouTube doesn't care if you hit the bell. You have to hit the bell and then another thing because more buttons to click, I guess. I also just launched membership on the channel. So if you see the join button underneath this video, feel free to hit it. I made like a little explanation of what you get out of being a member. And it helps us out over here. So, hey, you got a couple of dollars, feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to answer probably just a few more questions, and then we're going to move, and then I'm going to end this. This is probably going to be the longest of reviews. But I guess the real question would be, do you prefer this type of review, an hour-long live stream where we talk about the show? or do you guys prefer the more succinct, 15 to 20-minute review that I do? I would love to know your guys' opinion on that, to let me know maybe where to go in the future. Maybe I don't need to spend a bunch of time recording and editing and all that stuff if I can just jump on and we can talk about it. So you guys let me know what you guys think, in terms of going forward, how we should be doing these Charmed reviews. I prefer. I mean, I really enjoy doing the other videos because I can include clips and all that stuff. But this is also very fun because I get to interact. So there you go. So just looking over here, let's see. Do you think Lucy or Ray will come back? Uh, yeah. I mean, Ray. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Ray. Like Ray is just like he's off doing his Ray thing. I feel like there should be a side show, like not sideshow. That sounds wrong. There should be another show called The Adventures of Ray, and it would be just like Indiana Jones, just going around and just like relic hunting. I think it could be fun, or at least like even if it's not him now, like the early adventures of Ray, and just call it Ray. Nobody will know what you're talking about. But no, I did actually, I did really like Ray. He reminded me a lot of my dad. So I was like, he made me feel nice and warm. So, will Maggie and Lucy reunite? Now I'm blanking on which one Lucy is now at this point. Maybe I'm terrible for that. Charmed Lucy. Let's see who's Lucy. Let's see. Oh, is it like that's the blonde chick, the sorority chick? Nobody needs her. I mean, they could bring her back. If they go back to Hilltown, then it would make sense for Lucy to show back up as well. Otherwise, you don't need her. She did not. For me, she add into the show. That's why I didn't even remember who he was. All right, sounds like a lot of you guys who are here at the live stream prefer the live stream. So that's good to note. What I'll probably do is ask you if you prefer the live stream, put it in the comments and let me know. If you prefer pre-recorded videos, put it in the comments and let me know. Because I guess the assumption would be if you're here for the live stream, you prefer the live stream. That's just my thought. That's just my thought. I don't know. Let's see. I do see here, Jackson says, live stream and keep doing the discussion with Approach the Nerd. Yeah, most definitely. I love Maria. Maria's awesome over at Approach the Nerd. We've collaborated on a few videos now, actually, and we're looking to probably come back together around in a few episodes. We don't want to do every episode together. We still do have our own schedules and stuff that we need to keep up with, but I'll collaborate with Maria any day. She is so fun. And like I said, anytime we go on and we do something together, like literally, like we are chatting for at least 30-40 minutes beforehand before we hit go. That's why we're already loopy and like laughing and stuff when we hit live. So she's a lot of fun. So let's see. Let's see. Do we think we will get any Macy Mel bonding? I sure hope so. Uh I feel like they spent a lot of time with the sisters bonding. And I don't feel like they need to beat that horse. I know a lot of people are like, we need more scenes with them as sisters and stuff like that. Like, like I love my brother and we're pretty close. But I can go a little bit without like calling him or seeing him. It doesn't mean that we're not as close. I feel like it, like as viewers, we're like we want to see it all the time. But just because you're not like constantly like talking about how much you love your sisters and constantly doing that, I don't think that means that they don't love each other. And I think all of the sisterhood trials that we've had up to now, I think they should mean something. I don't think that they need to like keep reaffirming their love for each other, because then it just kind of gets old. It's kind of like if you had a significant other and you're just like, prove to me that you love me, and then they do something for you and you're like, well, prove to me again. It's just like, but didn't I just prove me again? So anyway, that's just me. I don't know. I'm weird that way. I actually would like for Jada to come back. A lot of you guys are saying that Jada is dead, but also Death on TV don't mean nothing. They can bring back anybody if they feel like it, and I actually really did like Jada quite a bit. So that's just my own personal opinion. Of course, I preface that a lot on here because I need people to understand that when you come to a commentary review channel, it's not because I know all of the answers. Honestly, I love throwing out theories and guesses, and then I want to see if they're correct. So that's that's part of the love here. So anyway, we just hit an hour, so I actually am going to go ahead and end it here. Again, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, definitely subscribe, share the video and any of our videos, honestly, with your friends, family, other social, networks and stuff. Sharing a video, honestly, is like the biggest thing that you can do for any YouTube channel, let alone a small one like mine. We are growing, uh, but any help that you guys can give really, really helps. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming to hang out with me here. I have been your host, Loy. This has been the Turnout. Thanks